For people in the SEO business at our clients, they just became so much more relevant. So I don't think agentic is a threat to retail. I think agentic is a massive threat to anyone that is a marketplace aggregator of products and services online. When you and I are working with the AI, memory is something we've never really dealt with before. They're now in the boardroom being interrogated on what are we doing to be visible in AI. That's the thing that people aren't making the connection on, which is memory was possible. Look, Gemini's now got a huge memory, so they're following suit, but it was antithetical to an ad-based targeting. The bigger the circle, the more ads I could show you and the more I could control it.
Hello and welcome to Franc Talking. I'm delighted to be joined by Christian J. Ward, who's the Chief Data Officer at Yext. Christian, thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to have a quick introduction in terms of your career and what your role is now at Yext?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Andy. I'm looking forward to the discussion. So as you mentioned, I'm Chief Data Officer at Yext. I've been in that role for a number of years. I've been at Yext for about 13 years, which is insane to me how long it's been. Prior to that, I worked more on Wall Street and structured data, particularly in independent research. And I've been doing this, and what I focus on at Yext is helping all of our clients, both enterprise all the way down to small business, basically structure their data in a manner using knowledge graphs and our distribution platform to make sure that their data and their business show up. Now everyone's using the term visibility, basically making sure that it shows up in both search and now AI.
You've described search as no longer just keywords into Google, and we've seen this shift to be very conversational, the back and forth with your chatbot of choice. It's a probabilistic system, which is very different to what we've seen before. How do you sum up what marketers and brands have to acknowledge today in this shift?
So first off, I think many of the things that worked before are going to work again. I don't think it's more of a great gradual change, but it's not necessarily as different as people I think are trying to make it out to be. Basically, I think the most important thing to think about is we're moving from this world of search to dialogue. And I always like to point out the etymology of words because I think it really helps people understand. Search comes from the Latin circo. It means to encircle. That's why you go to like a 3-ring circus. It's the same base. And so you're looking in this big space for an idea. So you enter, shoes and you get 1 billion results back. That's search. And that's ideal for an ad-based platform. Where I think marketers have to understand is we're moving into dialogue. Dialogue is from Greek. It's dia and logos. It means through words. And what it happens is as we have these conversations, what used to be a search, this massive circle, actually shrinks way down. And it's actually not ideal for an ads model. It's great for an offers model. Because what's happening is that top of the funnel and the middle of the funnel are shifting from all happening sort of on your website, getting traffic to your website, that's shifting to happening inside the AI. And so for most marketers, I think the main thing to be thinking about here is you've got to focus on the fact that the funnel and the metrics are definitely changing. At the same time, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have the same or better throughput. I mean, I always think of how much money we spend to get people to accidentally click on ads that they didn't mean to, and they're showing up in your metrics, and then you see them hunting around on your website like, ooh, that page worked. I'm like, you're measuring the wrong stuff. Like, that's the difference. And so as that shifts, a lot of marketers are not going to be very comfortable for the next couple of years as that shift occurs. But I think the outcome is better both for the consumers and for them and their wallets when you figure out how to optimize for this.
Definitely. And what are you seeing with your clients in terms of how they're embracing the shift, and how is Yext also enhancing the product based upon this change over the last couple of years?
Yeah, well, so first off, it's different by industry most of the time. A lot of people are very excited by this, but I'd also say it's not affecting everyone equally just yet. So probably the best way to think about it is there's sort of things people like to do and things people don't like to do. Like if I was going to draw it on the axis, I'd be like, I like doing these things, I dislike doing these things. And then you have complex things and you have simple things. And the reason why I draw it like that is up here, you have these things people like to do that are complex. That's like planning a vacation with your family. Like it's very complex. That is AI is going to take over a lot quickly because it's so good at sort of assimilating all the knowledge. I like if I was taking my family to Disney World, I'd probably have 27 tabs open in Chrome. That's really frustrating. But over here, things that people dislike but are complex, that's much more like car insurance or life insurance. Like nobody wakes up on Saturday morning and go, I can't wait to get new insurance. Like, so that's going to be 100% AI and it's already happening. So that's where these offers and knowledge and engagement has to go faster. Then we have other things like I dislike or it's not super interesting to me is like ordering the dog food bag. Like it's not, I'm not totally into simple, but they like is like shopping for clothes. So some of these are going to lend themselves to AI more readily. So in our clients, what we're seeing is client by client. You have some people that are still like, oh, this AI thing, it's a fad, like they said about the internet. That's funny. That's not true. But then we have other clients that really understand this already. And so what they're focusing on is how do I take that approach and break it down by industry? So you'll see, for example, financial services is well aware that it's all moving to AI, and then they're at the very bottom of the funnel. They may not see much traffic at all in some of what their classic or their massive website had. Similarly, if you look at sort of aggregators of content, so marketplaces, they're going to struggle because a lot of that's now going to happen inside the chat. That's why Amazon has blocked ChatGPT, right? They've got an Alexa device in 600 million households. They want to do their own version of this. So I think what you're seeing is that different brands and different people have a different comfort level with exploring this. But I've never in a meeting like this is probably for many SEOs. Again, I'm not really an SEO, but for people in the SEO business at our clients, they just became so much more relevant than they have been for a long time. I mean, let's face it, most major companies, they spend 90% of their marketing budget in paid spend and 10% in organic, right? Like that's probably, depending on the industry, that's pretty fair. They're now in the boardroom being interrogated on what are we doing to be visible in AI.
As much as I've loved SEO like over the 20 years and held different positions at companies, there was always a sense that, and I've said this before in a previous one, like the understanding of what it really entails and the fact that I approach it to be very holistic. It involves product, it involves brand, it involves data, whereas sometimes you'd be pulled in and it's just the keywords, what keywords should we use here and things like this, right? And generally the focus was always on paid search or Apple search ads or anything for paid media more so. I think as well, the measurement side of things, because keyword data wasn't available or stopped being available from 2013 onwards.
Right.
I think that was also a contributing factor. Obviously, advanced kind of analytics you could set up for non-brand versus brand. Yeah, I do believe that it is back in vogue for the SEO like teams because you are seeing this. And like you say, let's just take it is with different sectors.
Yes.
If we say clicks are decimating, there's like traffic's collapsing, we see all of these headlines. That is the case in some, but not in all industries. But I think what we can say, we see the direction of travel, right? If we look back 3 years, 4 years, it is still the kind of original search experience that you would have had. And I think the fact we now have AIOs, AI mode, we've got different AI chatbots, the kind of journey's fragmented as well. And it is C-suite are turning to say, in the absence of ads, and we'll get to ads as well, because I do think they will come within the platforms.
Yes.
How can we measure visibility? How can we get revenue through AI search? And how can you help us understand what customers are doing, right? So yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts as well on how brands can utilize the SEO team and what the SEO teams need to do in order to try and measure that visibility and then influence it as well.
Yeah. So let's start with I think right now there's, if I was going to be super simple, I'd say there's really almost two camps of sort of the way SEOs are thinking about this. There's sort of the foot dragging, and then there's the sprinting ahead. And that's overly simplified, but you can see it on Twitter and LinkedIn quite a bit. One thing I think that's happening, which I think is a big mistake, is I'm seeing all these people basically write and do stories on things like the share of search. And so what they're doing is they're measuring, well, like this is all Google, and then there's this tiny ChatGPT thing. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, that's wrong. Okay, because what they're measuring is swings at the plate, not on base percentage. Okay, so if I have to search 27 times to get my Disney trip ready, that is not an indication of a good process. That is an indication of you're wasting my time. So 27 is not a good number there. On the other hand, if in this little sliver, I'm spending 2 hours having conversations about that trip to Disney with the AI, and I only spent 46 seconds doing those 27 searches, that's how you have to measure it. Time is the only human asset. Everything else, that's why we say time is money. Everything else is just a way to transform time into economic value. And so when you look at this, I would say to everybody that's sort of foot dragging, stop thinking that this isn't exactly what's happening. In fact, I saw a post by one of the SEOs, maybe at a conference, and it was just this idea that Gemini is already taking over a huge portion of the time. And I think that's good. I think that's a proper path. So when we measure it that way, your focus should be on these tools. Now, in terms of measuring it, what's we've seen happen is that, and what we typically talk about is there's really 3 fragmentations happening at the same time. The first is search fragmentation. And that's really these types of pies where it's sort of like, well, this is Gemini and this is ChatGPT and that's happening, meaning platform distribution. And we haven't had that in 20 years, right? So that's kind of interesting. But the second one that's happening, and which changes how we think about measuring visibility, is rank fragmentation. And rank fragmentation is that when you and I are working with the AI, memory is something we've never really dealt with before in search. Yes, there's rank brain, and that's adorable, but as we knew, that was like only a few percentage points, right? What we now have is rank fragmentation means because of the memories, both explicit and implicit, that I give the AI in the dialogue, what happens is it's changing the order of the search results because it's really analyzing the probabilities that it's really tied to what I'm interested in. Rank fragmentation means you can't, or I won't say you can't. We do keep a ranking of when your brand is mentioned in a response at Yext, but that's not always going to be the same. In fact, it's likely to be different every single time. So you're really fighting for visibility and being an answer and being part of the ongoing dialogue. You're not necessarily fighting to be number one. That's a big change. The last fragmentation, the third, is experience fragmentation. What we mean by that is, and this is just getting started, which is, I don't know if you've tried Atlas yet. Atlas is pretty insane. So everyone, that's the OpenAI browser. You've got to try some of these browsers where the AI takes over the browser and starts searching for you. It's wild. And that's one version of, that's not searching the classic way. That's a whole new experience. Or for example, I have a Tesla. I have an old Tesla, but it still does it, which is Grok is now embedded inside of Tesla. So you can have a full dialogue and learn about the Roman Empire while you're on a long car trip. That was never really possible before. So there's these elements that I think the experience fragmenting, the ranking fragmenting, and the actual search fragmenting, they're compounding very quickly. So for most marketers, they need to understand those 3 because there's different things to worry about or to measure in each one. So at Yext, we built an entire platform to take classic Google visibility. We bought a platform. You might know the Places Scout guys. We bought Places Scout back in May of this year, where they do by location, because it really matters where you are to the AI. Every AI uses location, unless you tell it not to. Every AI uses it. And so if you ask for a business or a product or a good or a service, it takes that into account. We can now analyze in these hexagons that are usually about 6 kilometers wide or even bigger or smaller, depending on what the client wants. But we can see who are you competing with to show up in Google and AI. So we're tracking a ton of this. It's literally billions and billions of data points for a client base per month, where we can then look back and say, what did you do that made you more visible or less visible in what we're analyzing?
With the pie chart that you've just run through, yeah, I've seen the same as well. And I've seen a ChatGPT is 2% of my traffic. Why do I care about this? But understanding how a user engages with AI chatbots is essential here, right? Because I've worked with one of my current clients. We've set up chat monitoring. So with the agents, human
Yep.
agents, and clients to understand what they're talking about and on the calls. And there's a lot of mentions of ChatGPT, which we attribute back to direct. So in terms of how they've come, so you can then see that somebody has done a prompt, they have entered into a dialogue, and then they've either opened a new tab or they have called up or something, or they've
clicked a citation.
yeah, so like that. But what we're seeing is that it's not the referral traffic that is the main driver of the business. So if you kind of look just at traffic, then you're missing the bigger picture with how users are engaging with chatbots. I don't know if you've found that as well, with if somebody is, one of your clients is looking for, or a customer of one of your clients is looking for a particular sector or brand, and then they don't action it from a referral click to the client website.
Yeah, it's so obviously a lot of our clients have physical locations. It's a big part of our business. It always has been. It's not the only part, but it's important to them. What we actually saw, and this started just after ChatGPT's launch, is we saw a decline in Google visibility. So it kind of went down in terms of classic Google search with the local pack, and at the same time, Google Maps went up. And that was interesting because then we're like, oh, they're actually not in Google finding the business, but their muscle memory was like, oh, I want to go there, and we saw Google Maps go up because I don't use Google search to find the directions when I'm driving. I actually use Google Maps. And so we saw Google Maps as sort of like picking up the slack, which was really interesting. Now, it's very tough. These are correlations. You can't claim causality because you really can't follow someone, thank God, from one device perfectly. Like surveillance has got to take a dive, in my opinion. That's what's also happening here. But to me, what this showed, and we saw this with our customers, is most of our customers have seen a decline in visibility or ranks and other things and referral traffic from Google. But I think you have to go back to sort of the best way to think about search, right? So search, and Google wrote a paper years ago called The Messy Middle, and it was really, really smart, but it basically used the explore versus exploit trade-off that we find in social sciences and cognitive psychology, where humans typically, one way to think about it is when I'm exploring, I'm not ready to buy anything. I'm sort of in this learning mode. I think all of that is shifting to AI. And I don't mean not ChatGPT, I mean Gemini and all of them. Gemini 3 is outstanding. So I think the exploration is kind of what you're seeing falling off. The exploitation, taking action, meaning like in the proper sense of the term, when I'm ready to exploit, take an action, the reality is that still happens a ton in Google. So you'll see a lot of good traffic from there, but you can't dismiss that the exploration happens somewhere else. The other thing to think about is very few teams at large companies and others actually track well from their paid and their organic side all the way through to checkout. I think what you will start to see is the few agencies or the few SEO teams that can do it all the way through. I think you're going to see a much higher percentage of conversion through the AI funnel or connecting the AI funnel and a click in, because people have already learned everything they need to know about the product. They're just on your page to verify and buy. That's very likely. Now, the other thing that's going to happen is AI is going to add all the exploits. We've already seen this. Shopify, Walmart. Walmart literally has said, Walmart bought jet.com. Remember that? It was $6 billion to buy that thing. And Walmart's like, yeah, we're going to do it all through ChatGPT and hook up to them. Like Walmart's accepting that the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on their website over the years, that's not going to be the main way that people shop. So look, I think this is happening so fast. People are a little bit head in the sand. But I do think if you think about in the explore versus exploit phase, you've got to put all your data out there, structured, incredibly easy to gather, chunked in the right amounts to win the explore. Because as that exploit starts showing up more and more in all these AI systems, meaning to take an action, all the traffic's going to go there.
So if we look at agentic AI and we look at the way that Perplexity is integrating shopping, ChatGPT the same. You spoke earlier on about how agents can go off and do your car insurance for you. But how much of a threat is agentic AI to retailers? Like we've seen Amazon call out Perplexity with a lawsuit in terms of their browser Comet that would go and purchase items on behalf of a customer. How much of a threat is it to the likes of Amazon? And again, what can Amazon do to protect itself from having this agentic setup?
Yeah, so Amazon's a unique case. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know how many Echo Dots you have in your house. I might have like 30. They're like one of the most common conference giveaways to a speaker. So I have way too many Echo Dots now. What I would say is the reason why Amazon think is doing that is if I was them, I would not give up the ghost yet either. If you haven't tried Alexa Plus, it's actually very good and it's going to get much better. So it used to be, you'd say like Alexa, turn on Band of Horses in the living room and she'd be like starting the car. Like she was so terrible. Like, and now you have this amazing thing where you can have full-blown conversations. I think once they hook up their shopping, they have 600 million of those devices out in the world. There's no reason for them to slow down on that. Now, that is not what Walmart took as a strategy, and they've spent a ton on their own web presence. And they're both aggregators of products. Why the different strategy for both? I think agentic is the answer, where what Walmart is saying is I don't have those devices in people's houses. So I don't have the ability to necessarily go after that. So I don't think agentic is a threat to retail. I think agentic is a massive threat to anyone that is a marketplace aggregator of products and services online. So think of the OTAs. I think the OTAs have a real existential problem, which is if you let the AI continue to track what the flights are on your system, but then they have an agentic way to buy direct from the airline, that changes a lot of things. So I think it's not the retailer. So a direct retailer like Faraday Brands or, whatever my daughter's Altered State, like whatever stores they go to, like those stores, I think will be fine with this. In fact, I think what you'll really see is they'll let more of the knowledge of everything about their products, goods, and services into the agentic experience, because why fight it if you know you can have a direct transaction layer? I actually think it helps them. That's why Shopify, we're getting into Ben Thompson land, if you read Stratechery, where he really explained the difference between aggregators, marketplaces, which is more of Shopify. You get into this area of like enabling vendors. And I really think agentic enables the direct retailer. I think it's existential for a lot of the aggregation platforms. They either have to have their own foundational model or they're going to give up to somebody that does. And that's very likely to happen. So for generally retailers, I'm like, this is fascinating. The big thing retailers are missing is that whole concept I was saying earlier of them moving from ads to offers. They need to change their mindset, which is once the AI has memory about me and it understands after 3 back and forths, it already knows this is probably the backpack he should buy. Why don't I see if there's an offer for that? And retailers are terrible at putting their offers online in structured ways. And that's an area that we see a massive opportunity for them.
Definitely. And I guess with the rollout of instant checkout and tools like this that brands can kind of engage with ChatGPT, like this is what that Target launched one a couple of weeks ago. You've had I think Airbnb were quite critical of it, but I think we'll see them come on board at some point.
Yeah.
You've got Zillow as well, was one of the founding ones. I mean, this is an opportunity for brands to talk to customers through a app experience within ChatGPT. And I mean, it does take time to get these things up and running. So like, do you remember there was a big boom around voice apps in 2018
Yes.
and 19? And and to be honest, the point you were raising about the Tesla with Grok, that showcases how much voice has come on, and it's not the same experience. I'm a Google Home guy as well, not an Alexa.
Oh, yeah.
And my boys, my 2 young boys, they're like, this is awful versus ChatGPT. Like, I don't know why you're using it. And I'm like, no, Gemini's coming soon. Don't worry.
Yes.
Don't worry. But yeah, going back to the e-com side of things, or any retailers, to have that opportunity to have a product feed and then have an instant checkout that you can then set up, like, I think that is the kind of way forward as well that these brands need to be thinking about.
Yeah, to me, look, I think this is progress. I would also say you have, on one hand, people sort of complaining, or even Department of Justice going after Google on these monopoly charges. I don't know if you saw it in the actual Department of Justice finding where they found there wasn't a monopoly. It says plus the rise of all these AI things. So it's kind
I
of
know,
funny. It
it's
took
so crazy.
It took so long. It's like, well, it was probably a monopoly when you started the
Yeah,
lawsuit.
when you started it.
Look, I think we have to accept that this is the direction it's going. I also would offer, I think marketers have been, and I consider myself in marketing, but like marketers ruin every technology we get access to, right? So it's absolutely true. So like the moment someone was like, oh, I could put up a sign on the countryside, there were billboards everywhere. And they ruined the countryside, like ruined it. Then you go into like telephone. Oh, I can call everyone. So they started telemarketing, ruined the telephone. Text messaging, totally ruined. Email, spam. We can't help ourselves because there's no governor on how these technologies are used. I'm going to argue that I think the surveillance, cookie tracking, CDP, de-anonymization, I think it's just a bridge too far. We have taken something and the pendulum swung way too far one way. And what AI is going to do, and this is why I say it's going to be uncomfortable, is you're not going to have the data. You're not going to have my conversation with ChatGPT when I land on your page to buy an inflatable kayak. I'm sorry, you're just not going to get that data. You're going to be happy I bought your kayak, and you're probably going to offer me 10% to buy it from you and not someone else. But that's all you're going to get. And I actually think that's good. Now, I get a lot of people go, well, then the AI companies have all your data. I'm like, yes, but surveillance is not what we would call a fair value exchange. You tracking everywhere I go to try and create some sort of false identity of who I am is not fair to me. I'm not getting anything in return. People are like, well, you get targeted ads. I'm like, nobody wants targeted ads. It's like saying, I don't want bees. I want bees that just target me. They're all bees. I don't want them to be I don't want the ads. What I want is great offers. And I think the AI will get you there, but you're not going to have the same data set. And so I hate to say this to many of the audience, but if you've spent millions of dollars on CDPs, I've been telling all of our clients for years, I think this is a bad idea. Almost like if you 20 years from now, all the marketers were sitting with our grandkids, hopefully, and we're like, what did you do for work, Daddy? Well, I built a system that followed everyone around into their homes to see who they talked to and what they read and where they went. And then so Grandpa, you were a stalker? No, 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 no. I was a marketer. Stop it. It's stalking. We have to move on from this. And I think the AI is a phenomenal way to admit that that was wrong, but you're going to have to get used to less metrics. And I think that's the part I think it's going to be hard. I think people have grown to love the control, but I think it's time for it to go away. And I think, don't get me wrong, I think AI will have ads, but the ads are going to operate differently. It's almost going to be a side panel that updates dynamically, the way Google's doing it in Gemini. But as the dialogue continues, they'll update dynamically. You're going to get, as a marketer, you got to stop thinking organic and paid. You have to bring these two teams together and understand that this interplay is absolutely the future. It's not just one group and another. If to anybody listening, please start, if you're an SEO, having lunch with the paid team again. Like you need to get to know how they're going to tackle it because you're all in the same boat. This is not two worlds.
There's going to be a new way of thinking towards that you can't track and measure everything possible, right? And it's going to be uncomfortable for some. But what could we do as marketeers around agent analytics? So if we do believe, so that we've spoke about like agent to agent, you'll have fewer people going to websites in the future where everything is in the one app. How important is it for agent analytics to be part of the kind of KPI framework, whereby are you seeing ChatGPT, just use ChatGPT as an example, search hits come to your site, meaning that you are showing up in an answer somewhere? How important is that for marketeers to start to embrace?
Oh, I think it's the most important thing they could do right now. So at the very least, everyone should be analyzing their log files to see if these individual bots are crawling from each of the different options. Because they said there might be one app, but there's going to be one app for me, and there's going to be 21 apps. So there's going to be a lot of different tools like this. DeepSeek just came out with a bombshell recently on another GPT-5 level model with agentic capabilities, and it's open source. So like you have no idea you got to track all of them. That's on the technical side to sort of see what's being consumed and how fast it's being consumed. I think on the visibility side, the most important thing is to think about who are your clients, right? If you're healthcare, you're trying to understand the patient journey. You always have. But you have to understand, people used to type into Google, my ankle hurts. and you'd show up and you're like, hey, we're showing up, visibility. I'm like, yeah, that's not far enough to understand. Like, is that an orthopedic surgeon problem or is that getting an ace bandage? Like the reality is it's so disconnected from the reality. I think what you will start to see, and the way we've approached it at Yext, is we're trying to understand how are people going to use AI. And so one of the huge differences between the way we look at the data and other people look at the data is most people are doing this brand level data. They're basically saying, like, let's say you're a major brand and they're saying brand, and then they say, they do what's called a query fan out. Everybody talks about this, where it's like, for brand, give me the 20 most common questions and then see what's cited. Okay, that's why Reddit shows up, because you're asking brand level questions. But most human beings are not asking brand level questions. They're like, hey, they're not like Nike. Tell me the story of Nike. Tell me how when Nike was founded. Tell me Nike. Nobody's asking that. I'm saying, hey, I'm looking for new running shoes. Mine are worn out. I'd like to try Nikes. Do they have a wide toe box? I'm having a whole conversation. Do you know what it's doing? It's looking at my location first and saying, well, what Nikes are available around here? And that's a very different mindset. In our study, do you know that we found Reddit only showed up 3% of the time on average, compared to 97% was all like directories, websites. It was so different than what people are claiming. And it's because that's not how humans are going to use this. So what we would tell everybody is, when you're thinking about analytics, you really want to, there's the technical side, as I said, looking at log files and interactions. There's the visibility side, so literally querying and trying to find out what's there. But you have to think about it from the customer or the patient journey, whatever your target audience is. How are they asking the question? And don't forget about location. It always makes me laugh when you do Google searches, like coffee shop, I get. The closest coffee shop should probably win. Divorce attorney? Do you think I care if my divorce attorney is close? Like, come on. No, you're looking for the best divorce. Like, it depends. And the AI is going to do that. And it's going to keep, I'm not getting divorced. It's going to get your memory. It's going to use memory to make those better. And proximity will play a part, but nowhere like, do you remember when all the SEOs, like the number one strategy when I moved from finance to here was to get like a PO box at the center of the city. And you're like, this is the best. I'm like, this makes no sense. And looking back, it's like, I get it. We're optimizing, but it makes no sense. Like, we're moving from this nonsensical rule-based world to this probabilistic world where a lot more makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah, I just on that, I just always remember, I've done the rounds on LinkedIn a couple of years ago, but there was a brand called Dentist Near Me.
Yes, yes.
There was a big sign like that. I was
Yes,
just like, that's,
I had a presentation that started with, there was an ER near me in Texas, and then
yeah,
dentist near me, and the tooth was a map marker in the logo. And then I actually found a sushi near me on their sign, and they took a tuna roll and made it into a map marker shape. And I'm like, this is poison. This is the epitome of chasing nonsensical behavior. But look, people have been doing this since the Yellow Pages. Do you know how many AAA plumbings or AAA pest control why? Because people started at each category, they started alphabetically. That was the algorithm back then. So it makes
that's the,
sense, but
yeah.
it's still, search has been causing unnatural behavior for a very long time. I actually think each evolution, we're getting closer to a proper behavior.
That's the problem when the SEO gets to the CEO position, isn't it? They'll go, we'll rebrand this. So
Well,
yeah, no,
let's
no.
do it. Let's do it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff, Christian. So you spoke on your newsletter, Be Data Able, and a number of times about location and memory. And just to recommend that to I push it on my newsletter quite a lot. Definitely go check it out. There's some great stuff there. Monday mornings it comes out. Is that correct, Christian? Yep. So yeah, definitely check it out. But yeah, you've spoke many times about memory and personalization. And I think if the majority of people looked at the memory settings in ChatGPT, they'd actually be quite horrified from what they would find. I use voice activation quite a lot on it, and to get a voice clip of what I'd said 2 years ago about something is quite surreal, to be honest. So the amount of memory that ChatGPT, OpenAI has on me to then customize and personalize my answers is huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's me as a paid for subscriber which I'm in the 5% for all users within a ChatGPT. How much of an issue is this for non-logged in users and brands that are tackling the majority in terms of the memory setup?
Yeah. So look, Sam Altman came out right after GPT 5 came out. He said, look, GPT 6 will be all about memory. And then there was an article earlier about how he's pushing people to get more memory faster because it really transforms the customer experience of using these tools. When it comes to brands, businesses, local business, it really doesn't matter. There's a couple things going on here, which is I'll break them down. Really, there's the explicit and the implicit memories, right? And the reason why I say that is when you talk about the voice recording, that is an explicit memory. You have given it all of that information. And from that, it can literally recall anything you talked about years ago and bring it into the dialogue. That's powerful, but it's a little creepy. There's a lot of issues with how that works, where it's like, actually, you said, like, wait until the robot's in the kitchen and here's the fights between my wife and I. There's going to be a lot of like what you said, like that's going to happen. Okay. You're going to have to shut that off. Implicit memory is interesting because we're not quite sure how each model is using implied memories. So for example, if I say I'm going to Disney, I need room for five, I've implied that I have a family and that there's that many members in the family. So there are these elements that it's taking on. For example, I showed at a major financial institution, I was showing them ChatGPT in memory. And I said to them, said to ChatGPT, this is live. I said, can you recommend a financial advisor I'm thinking of changing? And it said, well, based on what I know about you, I recommend it was Charles Schwab in the Boca Raton office of Florida. I was like, why? And it said, well, because they have this and this and this and this. And I was like, yeah, but still, why? And it goes, well, you told me that your daughter attends the University of Florida and that you also went there and that you like to support Gators in business as well. And all three principals of this financial advisory group went to the university. I'm like, wow. Now that look, you can't game that, right? Like, and that's now happening for all of these users, logged in and non-logged in, where they're creating these elements. Because even if you're not logged in, the reality is they're learning information around and about you. Now, logging in or having an account, all of these are going to enforce that at some point. But I think memory is this amazing unlock for the consumer too, which is if you know which cars I have, and I say flat tire, I have a flat tire, you're not going to have to sit there and type in a bunch of models and makes and all this stuff. It's just going to go, well, for that car, here's your three best options locally. And so because obviously flat tire is a local problem, right? So it knows to bend much better. And I want to offer, and this is not a hit on Google, but if Google kept memories, I'll give you an example. For 18 years, 18 and a half years, I've been typing into Google, tree nut friendly allergy menu, restaurant near me. 18 and a half years. Because my 19-year-old, when she was 6 months old, we realized she had a massive tree nut allergy. Okay. Why didn't Google just remember that? They could have. Why doesn't it remember when you're vegan? They could have, because every memory shrinks the available ad opportunities. That's the thing that people aren't making the connection on, which is memory was possible. Look, Gemini's now got a huge memory. So they're following suit, but it was antithetical to an ad-based targeting. The bigger the circle, the more ads I could show you and the more I could control it. But if I told you I'm vegan and you keep showing me steak stuff, we're going to have a problem with memory. So I think there's a lot of forces at play here that marketers need to be thinking about. And really, as marketers, the only solution that you have is to provide as much knowledge as you can. In other words, tell me about your menu. Tell me about the ingredients. Tell me stuff that SEOs and others have put off for years. Like, that doesn't really matter. I'm like, nothing could be more pertinent now, which is you need the digital sort of personification of your business, complete and utterly in that system, updated in as real time as possible. And then the other side of this is a piece that people don't realize is everything you put out there also has to be verifiable. So when you talk about probabilistic, everyone's using that word now, and probabilities. The probability is the more times the AI sees that exact data on your website, on a directory, on another website mentioning your website, the more times it sees that, the probability to the AI increases that this is an accurate statement. That's why in our study, we found the directories, they were 40 to 45% of all citations once you add location, because it's what it checks. So there's all this sort of readjusting. But for the brands and businesses, memory and how it operates is going to transform. But you will not be in the discussion if the AI cannot easily find how you have a tree nut friendly allergy menu for the Ward family. It's not going to happen. That's the piece. Because at this point now, I will tell you, just to finish this anecdote, is I was in London with my wife. And we were visiting. We were there for South by Southwest over the summer. And I asked in voice mode, hey, we want to go out for sushi. Can you recommend a place nearby? You know what ChatGPT said to me in the voice mode? Are the kids with you? That's crazy. Because now, again, I know that sounds creepy as hell, and it was. I assure you, my wife was not happy about that response. But I was like, it's because it wants to know if the allergy menu matters right now. I don't think people quite understand how big memory is going to be. That's why I write about it so much. But I think it's a massive change in marketing and access to clients. It's going to change a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully ChatGPT wasn't going to send you somewhere it shouldn't do, because just for confirming that the kids weren't there. But
well, maybe a little more romantic ambiance. Yes. Yeah. I mean, Chuck E. Cheese would not be appropriate.
No,
So
no.
yeah, it swings both.
Christian, let's get on to ads. We have seen Sam Altman historically saying that ChatGPT will never have ads. I believe that has shifted significantly over the past year or so. We've seen reports that they're gearing up and getting ready to go. So two things. How will ads look in something like ChatGPT? We've seen Perplexity fail so far in terms of their ad proposition. So that's one thing. How will customers interact with ads?
Yeah.
And the second point is, for advertisers, what tools will be available to get an audience understanding? Because I'm sure you will have seen it as well when you're talking to clients. What are people prompting on ChatGPT? It's a question that gets asked, and then it could be 30 words long, which is impossible to try and have this keyword planner mindset that we've had for 20 years, 25 years. Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on how you think, and again, look, it's all hypothetical, how will ads look in ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google AI mode, and then also what are the tools that you think could be available? Will there be a ChatGPT console like we've had with Google Search Console, for example?
Yeah. So let's start with what they'll look like. And again, I'm speculating, but I think we have to consider what's the visual and what's the interaction. So for the consumer, I think what's highly likely is I think we would all be upset if I was like, hey, I'm looking for sushi tonight, and can you recommend a few places? And it's like, well, there's this place, this place. By the way, there's a 2-for-1 at Burger King. Like, that's not going to work, right? So we know that humans don't like to be interrupted in a dialogue. It's actually incredibly rude in our perspective. It's different in a digital visual display. So depending on what medium you're interacting with, I think you're going to see very different things. But realistically, if you think about it in sort of a 2-panel construct, there's this idea that it's sort of like, over here, I've asked about a new backpack. The AI says, is this for work or for like hiking with your son? And then I say, well, it's actually for this Boy Scout trip we're going on. And it goes, well, where? And I tell where. And it's like, well, how cold? What time of year? By the time it gets to here, what I think will happen is, over here, there will be an ad here, and then there will be an REI ad. But the first time I responded with something new, these all are going to change. And so what's happening is, in a way, it's going to blow out inventory opportunities, but it winnows down really fast. So it gets to, now, I wrote a piece for Adweek, God, I think it's 2+ years ago now. And it was, one whole subsection was from ads to offers. And what I think you'll see is that if you have pages, this is a huge part of how our clients use our page platform, and it has offers. And I'm a backpack company, and it's like work backpacks, play backpacks, camping, Boy Scout special, right? Those are more like offers, in that there might be a discount for that trip because they're targeting parents of Boy Scouts. So there's an element of this where you start to realize, like, this gets really dynamic. And we think of ads today as dynamic. And I'm like, yes, it's dynamic to you, the brand, because you have 9,000 keywords and 1,000 negative keywords. But that's not what I mean by dynamic. I mean, to the consumer, there's a dynamism where it's getting better as I talk to it. That's not really what happens typically when I'm using search. In fact, I usually find you meander and you're like, oh, that's not at all what I was looking for. And it comes back, right? So there's this beautiful funnel built in, but the funnel's not your funnel, the brand. The funnel's the consumer's funnel to the answer. And I know everybody thinks, oh, well, that's what I was doing. No, it's not. It's not what you were doing. What you were doing was targeting the most volatile or the most opportunity. So this is how I think it's going to look. I think it will be very different by the process, but there's two. You asked how do brands optimize for this, and that's a different thing. And once again, I'm just speculating, but what I would tell you is I think number one, things like your digital presence and all of your content, I want people to concentrate on. There's two tools that I don't think people optimize for at all today compared to what they should. The first I've already said is offers. Offers are contextual. They are not ads. Ads are sort of, again, circled, right? They are not through dialogue where I'm like, it's a better offer. But think of something even more dynamic, which is you could have a page that literally feeds the AI. Hey, if it's a first-time buyer, offer them this. If it's someone that's come back, someone that's a returning customer, offer them this. You could change your offers depending on certain categories. You just have to structure it very clearly. I wrote about this. I think what we're going to get back to is everybody in economics is going to hate me for this, but these supply and demand curves, right, where it's the price. And what it's going to do is, hey, offer them this. So the demand curves, as it shifts, it's going to change the offer. That's not yet, but I think that's where this has to go. Because if you think about it, what it means is, let's say I'm a car dealership and I'm having a down month. I can already see I'm not going to make quota. They have incentives they can use. Do not let anyone out of the AI funnel. If they've gotten all the way down to 3 cars types and the AI says, do you have an offer for Christian? You'd be like, hell yeah, give them a great offer. We got to move this vehicle. So your business will optimize based on this. That's one. And that can be done and handled with structured data and with an aggressive page strategy. But the other thing that I'll tell you, everybody that they sort of gave up on, and it makes me laugh, is loyalty programs. So do you remember everybody had on their keychain like 900 little loyalty scan things? Like it was the worst time. It was like, because now the problem with loyalty is humans can't remember everything you're loyal to. So yes, your hotel and your airlines, like, yeah, they got you. But everybody else, I'm like, I don't know how many punch cards I had at one point. Like, this is just stupid. Okay, I think that goes away. And again, I'm going to come back to memory because the memory will remember everything you're even minusculely loyal to. And if you have structured data around loyalty in your messaging, to, hey, tiers and everything else. I think AI and loyalty. If I was going to give everybody any advice to their clients, like the agencies or the brands, you should have little placards or signs at every check-in, check-out, like front of the store, back of the store. Remember to tell your AI you love XYZ brand. Because the moment you do that, it creates an explicit and implied memory at the same time inside the AI. I do this all the time, and I demonstrated that people aren't understanding that if I tell them, hey, I'm loyal to this hotel chain, I'm loyal to this airline, it completely changes that's where the AI looks first for offers, changes, and everything else. So there's a big opportunity there, but again, I don't think anybody's really talking about it. But here's why it works, because the human told the AI that they're loyal to it. And so you can present that as much as you want. You can do billboards on it, but you still have to have a good product and service and great customer support and all those sorts of things in order to make sure that they do want to tell it that they love you. And they don't say, hey, remind me to change my credit card. I hate these guys. Like you don't want because you could also be triggering the opposite, right? Remember, like that's the what is it? There's gyms where they're so low cost. People are just like, I don't think about it, but it's only $10. That's the model. Like the model is don't poke the bear. Just keep paying us. So like, I think there's elements here in how you look at the process as a marketer. I think the only thing you can really focus on right now is you should start building out. By the way, I want to point out offers and loyalty are kind of funny. They're sort of across the pond. They call it loyalty. And in America, the US, they call it offers, but it's the same thing, right? It's better access. Many markets don't do coupons and lower prices, but they do if you're in the loyalty program. But this is the same thing. So it's two sides of the same coin. But I think the reality is it's really starting to think about in the customer journey, in what ways can you influence through dialogue at the right time? Hey, I have this if you're interested in this. And what's great about the AI, again, as long as you have Structured data that's easy to consume, it's clear to the AI. You don't have to give it the exact offer. I don't think we're there yet. I think you can start saying in this region or this area, because the AI knows where I am, here's what we're willing to do. We're trying to break into this market. There's all sorts of things. But it really comes down to, I can tell you right now, the number of brands and businesses that do not have any pages on their websites around what it means to be loyal or what they do for loyal members and other access points and what the offers are. This is probably your best bet, because remember, once we go to the next stage of dialogue with AI, the AI is going to start asking you. So the AI is going to say, by the way, how was dinner the other night at that sushi restaurant in London? Okay, that's a really different world, because what it's going to do is it's going to skip the review sites, which I think have an existential threat right now. Again, why would I go to your site that's built on ads if the AI can tell me what people are saying? So they're going to block. They're already blocking a lot of the AI. They used to show up. They don't show up anymore. So in citation world, I don't know what they're going to do. Look, I think the reality is none of us are going to have 500 AI relationships with 400 brands, 50 review sites, and 50 aggregator retail sites. We're going to have one AI that has all the memory necessary, that navigates and agentically walks me through my life. And I know that sounds very scary, Blade Runner, but that's basically where we're headed.
You've mentioned a lot of times, Christian, on structured data. So for the audience, and this is something Yext have done like for years. What do you mean by structured data? Because most of the SEOs will start to think of schema or JSON LD. What is meant by structured data on the website? Is it content? Is it product feeds? Is it schema, or is it all of that?
Yeah, it's so it is all of that, but it's also just sort of a different way of orienting how the customer finally agrees to buy your client's product or a brand's product or their service. And there's two things to really think about this. This might be one of the first posts I wrote almost a year ago, was if you go to a couple pages for brands. This is the title, this is the big hero thing, and then here's all the products, and here's the menus and the services. Okay, this is good, but if you actually look in your browser, how much memory it takes to render this, I'm not joking. Most people's like per page with all their pretty images and all this stuff, all this photography, yeah, it's like 200 to 300 megabytes to render this. If you take this entire page and you say to the AI, hey, I need you to pull out a perfect schema table for everything mentioned on this page. Okay. Do you know how much memory that is? It's usually 50 kilobytes or less. That's amazing. So if I'm an AI always measures on two axes, memory and compute. There's this zigzag. And what it is I want AI to view my site as very easy to compute and not requiring a ton of memory. What we saw in our research is that, for example, let's say you're an insurance company like an Allstate or whomever, where you have a page that's highly structured and it's only a few megabytes, or you have your main domain. So you have an agent page versus the main domain. The main domain might have 1 million pages and they're really heavy. And the AI is trying to find an answer to a very specific question, which is for Christian Ward in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. What is the insurance that we have for these cars? Okay. If you have a page that is that instead of a huge website, what we found is local websites are cited massively by AI. Again, when you use it the way the consumer would with location enabled, which they all will be enabled. So we look at that and go, that's a very different thing. And so when we say structure, what we're saying is stop thinking about your images and all those things. Start thinking about what are you really trying to convey? And as we say, are you chunking it? And we joked earlier, every time I say that, I think of the Goonies. But like when you say chunk, what we're saying is this is probably a decent chunk. It's even better in a structured page. And I see a lot of people trying this. They're like, they're going to have actually Dwayne Forrester, our friend, just published a book on this, where it's sort of, he called it, I remember when I met him like 10 years ago, he's like, it's like the splinter net. But he was right at a different time where he was talking about the AI has a web. And the agents and the humans have a different. I think it's actually even more than that, which is the agentic gets the human by using your data. It's going to get you to a dynamic website that's just for me. And I know people are like, well, then it can't be crawled and indexed. I'm like, guys, forget about that. The indexing is, if you really think about it, indexing is an imperfect adjustment of compute and memory. It's not real time. It's not on the fly. It's not focused on me. It's focused on some ranking methodology that's in a back room. You've lived that. That's not what this is going to be. So the more structured data, and when I say that, I mean, all the way down to, for like a healthcare facility, the doctor, where they went to school, what their specialty is. But most importantly, do they accept this insurance? Make a page that's just for that, highly structured, almost tabular in nature, like a schema. But you can have something, but those pages, it sounds like I'm promoting landing pages. I am, to the AI, not to the humans. I'm literally saying spoon feed it, because the less cost on the compute and memory, the more optimized you are presenting your data. And that's what we focus on at Yext, is we help people structure all this knowledge to then build pages in any combination necessary, literally at the touch of a button. They can spin up millions of pages to be like, we're spoon feeding this. Now, that's not the best Google approach, but that is a great AI approach. So far, again, all these things could change. If we have a massive breakthrough in memory or compute, something that just blows everybody's mind, which we will, that's the history. If that happens, then maybe you can feed it 2 billion pages from your brand. I don't know. But ideally, it's looking for very detailed information. We've had these debates, but we're actually looking at it slightly differently. This is a little bit of one of those things of, if a bear was chasing us in the woods, I don't have to be faster than the bear. I just have to be faster than you.
Yeah.
The reality is by analyzing all of your competition locally and what's on their pages, we are tracking, are you beating them or are they beating you through time? That's what our platform Scout does. Scout analyzes through time. Think of Places Scout for anyone that knows it, and blow it out a billion times bigger, which is for every location, what are the 20 to 40 competitors that are around you? Because you might, again, this is so the difference between keyword think and knowledge think. Keyword think says burgers. And so you're analyzing for, let's say, Five Guys or McDonald's, all the burger joints. But when you get out into the countryside in England, you're not competing with burger joints. You're competing with pubs, Korean barbecue. You're competing because that's how people actually use it. And so thinking is dinner, not burgers. And so the AI is doing all that for you. You have to understand that your structured knowledge is the only thing that's going to save you in that process. It's not that you've keyword stuffed the burgers. Like that's not going to work. And so I think there's a crossover here for a lot in the SEO industry that actually I think many of them have already passed us a long time ago. And they were talking about semantic web and all these things, but they're really just talking about the human understanding of knowledge and engagement over the systematic gaming of an engine. And they're just very different.
I just wanted to run through in terms of local, because we've spoke throughout about the importance of local. Talk to me through how, if there's a local business that is kind of digital first, like they're they're tech focused, they understand the map pack, they understand the importance of Google reviews, but they are looking for ChatGPT as to be a growth kind of lever for them. What can local businesses do to try and maximize their kind of presence within the answers?
Yeah. So first off, I think local is going to benefit enormously from AI. And a lot of it is that when you're talking about businesses where they have a service area, or they have a region where they have stores, don't have stores, the AI, again, unless you set your AI to not either remember or use location, I think 99% of the time people are not going to do that, because it's so much more useful if you have both of those things. So when we did all of our analysis, we studied I think like 1.8 million questions and 7 million citations to understand what does adding a location do to what is cited by the AI. Because that's all you can really look at right now, is my visibility is being driven by these citations. As a brand, can I aggregate them and understand what powers mine, which is a lot of what the Scout platform is doing right now. Our goal with that is to get an understanding of, well, what directories, what web pages, what review sites, if it still works, what's working to drive local. For a business that is local, let's say, we have a bunch of bars and restaurants in our downtown here. Many of them are Yext clients. We have millions of small businesses through our partners that sell services directly to small businesses. And what we find is they're really savvy, right? If people always want to gauge marketers, I've met marketers at Fortune 500 companies that are not nearly as digitally savvy as the local pub down here. It's quite fascinating. I wish we could categorized by savvy. It would be much easier for you and I to deal with our clients. But the reality is for them, they're very soon going to be at a point where they're not just worried about how the AI is recommending them or not recommending them. What they're going to be doing is trying to find how could I be more discoverable because they don't understand the audience in their area. The AI knows all of that. We all think of talking to ChatGPT like it's my AI. No, that thing's a leviathan that's connecting all that data back into a learning and training set. So if you're where I am and I want a new surfboard, there might be 5 surf shops that are in small little pockets in my town that I have no idea exist because I just don't traverse there. The AI will bring those up almost easier if you, as the surf shop, give it more data. And I'll give you an example where I think this goes. We did an experiment years ago, and it didn't take for the same reason all voice assistants didn't work a few years ago. They sucked. Now they're unbelievable. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to be the small business owner. And I'm going to say, hey, Alexa, can you update Yext that I just got in 5 new almond surfboards, these 3 versions? And we have the kids version as well for anyone that wants. It's going to update our platform. Our platform's going to update their website and everything else, and all the directories and all the review sites and all the social sites, do a post. That's where this has to go. So the small business owner is going to be empowered by this because the AI does not care. Well, right now, at least, I don't think ad spend is necessarily going to change it. It's going to say something like making it easier to put data into the graph for us, which disperses it, is one of the most important things that we're working on and have been working on for quite some time. But I think AI is going to make that even easier. In fact, call me crazy, but I think we will have little indoor drones that at night come up, fly around your store, check everything, give you a list the next day of here's your new inventory, here's what I see. You change the chalkboard for the menu for tomorrow. I've got it all. Hit go, and it just updates everything. That is very, very likely. And so I think for small businesses, they have to be open to this, that number one, you're not going to control the message anymore. You might have your taglines and everything else, but the AI is going to interpret what you actually have to offer me and write it in a way you do not control. And that's something, again, I think you have to get used to. But for local businesses, that's a huge opportunity. They don't have the budget and everything else to dominate. Look, as soon as local ads were in the local pack, I'm like, like we're getting into this world where that used to be one of the few bastions of protected space. And I don't think it's going to be there. I think it's going to have to be, you can win if you have all of the knowledge of what I'm looking for. But you won't get the traffic, you'll get the business. And in the end, I know everyone, the SEOs are like, oh no, here's my metrics, here's my KPIs. Yeah, those are your KPIs. But in the end, it's just about the business doing better. And that's what you're ultimately going to be tied to.
With Yext over the next 12 months, Christian, what can we look forward to in terms of like new products and what you're going to be focused on?
Well, I can't share too many of where the roadmap is going. What I can tell you is most of our focus has been bringing more and more agentic capabilities into the process. So when we think about adding tools, so Yext has been building automations and agency into our platform for quite some time. But I think what you'll see is more adoption by our clients of using these metrics in a faster way. Today, for example, we're analyzing so many competitors. So let's say you're a business with 500 locations. I'm looking at your 500 locations, the 40 competitors around every location, 250 metrics of what their website does, their social, their reviews, their listings. I'm looking at all of that. And so what we've found is the best path forward for most of our clients is they're trying to, first off, do more with less. They want the AI to tell them what to do. And so for a lot of our future, what I see as us tying the recommendations to the humans in charge. We have seen people sort of going fully agentic, and I won't use I think that's a bad idea. I think the reality is you should have a human in the loop that's saying, yes, I agree on all of these things. This is your visibility. You cannot break this. You cannot get this wrong. We've seen that happen with some of our competition. What I would say is we're trying to make that process much more streamlined so people can see it and know what to do quickly. The other area that I think is absolutely going to happen is we're going to start to get metrics back from AI companies. So the next 12 months to me is we already have relationships with most of the major models, but at some point, if they do launch ads, it can't be a complete vacuum. They're going to have to give you something back to help you target your ads or somehow understand the ads are working or they're not working. And so I think you're going to see a lot of that data come on the market, and we will likely incorporate much of that information as well. So to me, the future of this whole space, not just Yext, is again bringing together the paid and the organic to understand. And I know everybody's not going to like this. It's not about you. It's about the consumer. And so the more you allow the AI to make that journey easier, and you understand that fragmentation is a good thing for this business, and it's a good thing for all of us, the fragmentation, the different versions of it, is going to be a really big opportunity for Yext to take our whole structured message of the right data, consistent in as many places, update in real time. That approach is going to continue to drive better business outcomes.
Christian, thank
for
you
our
so much for your time today. It's been a fascinating discussion. I've learned loads as well. And I think that anyone that has loved this content on this video, you have to follow Christian and his newsletter. Like I said, it's every Monday updates, really interesting stuff. It's a great read, and I would thoroughly recommend it. And yeah, Christian, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. It's been great, and I hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.